Thanks, Dylan. You're finally going to bed? I thought you already had gone to bed since you got tennis tomorrow. Staying up late, I see. Tennis boy away! Have a good night, my friend. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yep. Yep. What it does. Alrighty. Switch over to this. Alright, hello, everybody. How is everybody doing today? Hopefully everybody is doing absolutely fantastic here today. Holy smokes, we have a raid already. I just started. Rich, thank you so much for the raid. Hey, great for you to come on in. Wow. Well, hello everybody who's coming in, raiding in here. Oh man, just be a little bit careful about spamming. That's fine. Neurotic. I love you, dude. You're neurotic, but you got. Yeah, I know. I understand. I still love you, dude. Hey, Rich. Hey, Hey, Neurotic, how we doing? How we doing today? Hopefully we're doing absolutely fantastic. You guys are here nice and early, right before I'm gonna start, right before I'm about to start class here today. So, getting started with talking about some definitions of some statistics. But nothing wrong with that. I'm glad you all can make it. If you guys want to learn a little bit of something, you guys certainly came to the right place. Again, always talking about the basics and then hopefully working our way up. And that's just how it works. Fundamentals first, and then you build off of that. I think that isn't so bad at the end of the day. I don't think that's so bad at all. Your friend Rich here is an amazing streamer. I believe that. And he has a bit of a math phobia. I would say who doesn't have a math phobia? I know that math can be a very daunting subject. You hope it easy? I hope so too. It depends what questions Rich has in order to help him. Most likely won't have to deal with advanced maths ever again. That's okay. We use maths where it's useful, right? And it's okay, you know, sometimes there's certain things. I'm like an ex-soldier watching a war unfold right now. Truth. Focus, good to see you. Good evening to you. Good evening to you. You know what, though? Sometimes when you're dealing with subjects that are, daunting for you, sometimes the best way to kind of approach it is not to view it as a huge hurdle to try and jump over. It's just maybe it's something that you just overcome little by little. If you got a lot of time of which to hopefully work on it, or again, where it's going to be useful for you in your daily, everyday life, maybe just kind of chipping away at it little by little, just taking that time will be certainly most helpful for you. So, as I like to say, always go slow so that way you're more consistent over time, especially with the subject like mathematics, or where it's definitely going to be helpful for you in an actual situation that you're going to be using. So whether you run a business or whether it's your bank account, at the very least, you'll be more educated and at least know exactly how you need to handle what you need to handle. So, definitely worth the time and definitely worth the energy if that's the case, Definitely worth the time and the energy. This is so hard to go over my head. Yeah. Well, I'm not promising everybody the world. What I am promising is something practical that can be certainly helpful. Yeah, I've got this bucket hat this bucket hat. This is the hashtag United bucket hat, the most fashionable hat in all of the world. Let me tell you about this hat is quite amazing. It's kind of awkward to wear because I got to wear it over the headphones because it doesn't fit the other way around. Thanks, Focus. So to summarize, you just told me you'll teach me math for sure and pay me a few $1,000s. How about if I teach you math for sure? And how about you be able to earn yourself a few $1,000s for yourself? I think that sounds just fine. Thanks, Rich. At the end of the day, like I say for everyone else, I would like you to be more successful than I am. If you can, if you invest in yourself and you do well for yourself, I'll be more than happy that I at least was able to help you somewhere along the way. Thank you for the follow, Rich. Really appreciate that. Thank you. That's really kind of you. Alrighty. It's getting to be about that time. 6:01. I think we're getting ready to go. Can we do a short detour about banking since my friend Rich here is Swiss? Get a... Number 1, get money. Number 2, no. Number 1, don't be a teacher if you want more money. Number 2, spend within your limits. That's definitely an important thing. It's too late to tell you that. Truth. Alright, let me do some intros here. We'll go ahead and get going here since we're a little bit past the 6 o'clock mark. Let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go! Alright. Okay, let's get started today! Welcome back to Thursday, end of the week time today. So today, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be actually getting into the beginning of the material. Alright. We're going to be starting the first half here of Chapter 1. That is what the goal is here for today. Alright, first and foremost. But before we go ahead and do that here, I want to go ahead and ask a question here of the class. So that way, again, I like to give you guys a choice. Not illusion of choice, mind you. Actual choice. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little poll in the chat here. And, like I said, I listen to the majority here, so that's just how it works. Would you like music in the background, yes or no? Alright, so, again, I put music in the background just to kind of give a vibe, so I give up a vibe here in the background, just to have you sit and chill, have a kind of nice, relaxing time. And if you feel it's too loud, I can always turn it down. That's not a huge deal, like, kind of like it is right now. It's a bit turned down, but it's not going to be on, like, super loud. But if you feel it's super loud, I can certainly turn it down and make it more to your style. So, you know, I just, let's try. Would it be at the volume it is? Yeah, something to akin to that. Or I can always turn it down. I can adjust it pretty easily using Streamlabs. So, there is music on right now. Yes. I know it's a little bit tough to hear, but this would be kind of like at the level I'd probably keep it at. In all, you know, it would be light. It wouldn't be like, you know, blaring in your ears while I'm trying to talk, because of course, you know, the material is going to take the material is going to have to take precedence in basically what I'm talking about. But some people just kind of like, hey, you know, it doesn't have to be silent all the time. So I take your opinions into consideration. Yeah, take your opinions into consideration, and I'll just follow whatever the heck it is that you want to follow at the end of the day. So, democracy is important in this class, and I certainly follow that to the letter. So, this class isn't about me. I told you that before. Ha ha ha. Alright, we got about 15 seconds. You guys put in some votes there. Put in some votes if you want music in the background there, and then I'll just kind of roll with that for the remainder of the semester. Easy as pie. Easy as pie. Alright, so looks like 7 people said yes, so we're just going to go ahead and stick with that. We'll stick with the yes, and yeah. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Alright, yeses, take it. Alright, good beans. Turn that slightly. Balance that out a bit. There we go. That works. Alright, so we'll have a little bit of music running in the background, but that's no big deal. More importantly, we are going to be going on to the new material here for today. Alright, so I promise you we're going to get to some nice, important, fun stuff here regarding math. But today, again, most of everything here we're covering here, besides the first 3 sections here at Chapter 1, is going to be definitions-based. All right, less around the numerical-based sort of thing, and more along the lines of the definitions at the end of the day. All right? Okay. So let's go ahead, and I need to actually do this here real quick. Buy things, you see, I do things on the fly. Does certain. Alrighty, there we go. Okay, so let's talk about statistics here. Let's talk about some of the basics. We're gonna go to the big board. Let's go to the big board, and let's see exactly what we're looking at. Ba-bam! All right. So again, if you're not sure where to find this handout here, this handout is located underneath content, underneath the handouts section, and again, underneath sections 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. So this is the handout here that you have. Again, you can go ahead and print it out, or again, you could go ahead and just download it. Again, fill in the blanks that we're going to be doing here together, and pretty much that's how pretty much most lectures are going to go. I promise you. Yeah, super fancy. I'm telling you. Yeah. All right. Let's look at question number 1 here. Question number 1 asks, what are some basic terms that can be used when talking about sampling? Okay, so let's talk about sampling here. Now, one of the things in statistics that we're going to be doing here in this class is we're going to be talking about statistical studies, okay? Especially in terms of what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to take a statistical study, hopefully ask a group of people a certain survey question, whatever that may be, and be able to extrapolate that to a larger group of people. Now, in order for us to do that here, we have to do what's called sampling. Now, of course, there's a few things that we need to talk about when it comes to the concept of sampling here. First and foremost is the population. So what is the population here? Now, again, these concepts here we're going to see over and over and over again in a lot of things here that we're going to be doing for the class, so don't be surprised. You're going to see a lot of these words pretty much in literally every section. Now let's talk about population. Population is something that's pretty intuitive, okay? Nothing too hard. But again, population would be the entire group that will be studied. So for example here, what would be the population? The population would be like, okay, let's say everybody at ECC. So all the students at ECC, that would be the entirety of the population. Everybody who attends ECC is going to be the population. Now, let's say I'm looking at a sample. What's a sample? Well, a sample is a subset of that population. So for example here, we have 28 students in this class, okay, or whatever, some amount of people in this class, I guess. But in any case, those 28 people would be a subset of the students at ECC, and again, that would be the subset of the population. That would be 28 out of however many people go to ECC. And then that's exactly what you would have there as a sample. So what we want to be doing here, essentially, is we're going to be taking a sample of people, asking them, say, some kind of survey question or questions, and then we want to be able to extrapolate those results that we get, and we want to appropriate that to a population. Okay, because it's a lot easier for me. So for example, it's a lot easier for me to ask 28 people in a survey than it is to ask, say, the entirety of everybody who goes to ECC. That's thousands of people. Okay, that's too many, right? So especially if you think about the United States, the population of the United States is 350 million plus. So if you're talking about something like that, well, maybe not asking 350 million is really that easy to do. So that's very time consuming and very expensive. So obviously we're going to be looking at a sample and hopefully getting proper results. All right, now the last thing that we talk about here is individuals. Individuals are basically a person or object that is being studied within the population. So it's exactly as what you think it is. An individual is exactly an individual. It is just a singular person or object, okay, in which that person or object will be part of our study. Okay, very good. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at number 2. So number 2 and 3, actually. So now that we have a good idea about a population, a sample, and an individual, what exactly is statistics? Or again, what is a statistic here in number 2? So our statistic here is going to be a numerical summary of a sample. That is the actual formal definition of a statistic. So for example here, let's say I ask 500 people, do you like brand A or brand B? Okay, just as a simple survey question. Maybe 38% of people, maybe 38% of people say, hey, I like brand A. 38% would be your numerical summary of that sample who liked brand A. Hey, doing Math 104 homework? Yeah. Set operations and applications. That's what I'm talking about. There you go. Doing some Excel spreadsheets. I know that's what you're doing, Athena. All right. And let's go ahead and yeah, I'll talk to you later, Athena. You have a good one. So what's the difference between a statistic and a parameter? Well, the only difference is between a statistic and a parameter is that a parameter here will be a numerical summary of a population as opposed to a sample. Okay, so if I said 57% of the population like brand A, out of the 350 million people in America, plus in America, then okay, that would be a proper parameter since that reflects the entirety of the population. So we want to be able to get to that result there. Ouch. All right. I don't know why my jaw was tight there. All right. Okay. In any case, let's take a good look here at number 4. Okay. So, actually, before we move on to number 4, are there any questions over these first 3 questions here? Any questions at all? Again, if you have a question, please feel free to ask, or if you don't have any questions, please type no in the chat, and I'll be able to move forward. All right. I'll go ahead and move forward then. That's not a big deal, not a problem. All right. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about here is let's go ahead and go over here to number 4. All right. So to get some of the other basics here out of the way, what's the next part that we need that we're going to be looking at here in most of these statistical studies? Number 4. What are variables and data? Okay. First of all, let's talk about what a variable is. So a variable is basically going to be characteristics of an individual within a population. So essentially, what would describe, say, a characteristic, for example, that would be, say, checking the, looking at the genders of individuals that we have as part of our study, so male or female, or again, age groups. So you could look at age groups. Well, how many people, if you're a marketer, right, I'm going to look at age groups. So we have 18 to 34, 35 to 49, 50 to 67, whatever the case may be. Okay, 50, 64, it doesn't matter. But again, those are maybe characteristics that I want to be looking over and assign a variable to. So I could be asking a survey question, do you like brand A or brand B? And I say, well, I asked, 500 people, to be, in this age group, 200 in this age group, 150 in this age group, whatever the case may be. And those numbers, 500, say 100 or 50 or whatever you want to call it, that would be data, again, numerical values that we put into those variables. So I asked 500 people between the ages of 18 and 34, 200 people between the ages of 35 to 49, and so on and so forth. So nothing too crazy going on there. But again, we have variables and data. We put numbers in those specific spots. Now, what we're going to be looking at here next is we're going to be looking at types of variables, right? So because of course, variable, the definition, there can be lots of different types of characteristics that you can certainly assign to a particular individual. And of course, that means that variables can be certainly broken up into various categories as a result. So let's take a good look here at number 5. And let's talk about the first 2 types of variables here. And we'll look at a few more after that as well. All right, so let's look at question 5. What are qualitative and quantitative variables? All right. So first and foremost here, let's talk about qualitative variables. Qualitative variables allow for classification of individuals based on an attribute or characteristic. So a good way to kind of think about qualitative, this being the formal definition, is basically if it describes something, a variable that is descriptive in nature. Okay, so you can base it on some kind of random characteristic, or you can base it on some kind of attribute that those individuals will have that they have in common. So it's more of a descriptive type of variable, would be like qualitative. The other type, kind of more on the flip side here, would be a quantitative variable. So again, a numerical measure of an individual would be a quantitative. So actually kind of like a numerical value that you have instead of instead of a description, you have more of a numerical value associated with that. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to look at several examples here, and we're going to go ahead and identify here. I want you to help me out here. You guys identify whether the following examples we're going to have here is going to be qualitative or quantitative. I want you to type that out in the chat. Okay, so we have qualitative or quantitative. All right, so let's take a good look at the first one here. Here we have nation of origin. Do you think that that's going to be qualitative or quantitative? So nation of origin, is that qualitative or quantitative? Go ahead and type out your answers there in the chat. Okay, some people to qualitative. I'll wait for a few more people to type in stuff. I know there's a few more people there, so qualitative there. Keep going here. Qualitative or quantitative? Get a few more answers here, then I'll move forward. All right, say qualitative there. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about it. So nation of origin would be like kind of your ancestry, okay, like what country, you know, are your ancestors from or something like that. So I would say, well, you know, my ancestors and my parents are from Pakistan, for example. All right, so the answer to this is indeed qualitative, okay? It's a description like, hey, where are your ancestors from? You know, there's many different countries, many different places that you could have your ancestry from. But again, it's a description at the end of the day. All right, fair enough. Let's take a good look here at the next one. Let's go ahead and put up a poll for this one here. Here we have the next one here. We have zip code. All right, so zip code here. I'll put qual for qualitative and quan for quantitative. We'll make it a quicker poll here, a 1-minute poll. So, what do you guys think? Go ahead and put in here qualitative or quantitative. A zip code. A zip code. Go ahead and click on the radio button and the poll of the one that you think it is. So, qualitative or quantitative? What do you guys think? All right. I have about 10 seconds. Go ahead and everybody put your last minute answers in there. All right. So it looks like everybody said qualitative. And the answer to zip code here is indeed qualitative. That is correct. Okay, so a zip code here, as all of you have correctly guessed, is describing, say, a designation for a city. So you could have a description for a zip code for Elgin, or you could have a zip code for Chicago. Again, Chicago has many neighborhoods and areas, so you would have a different zip code for different neighborhoods. Okay, so it is even though zip code technically is a number, it is actually describing certain cities or neighborhoods contained within a city, so that way it's easier to deliver packages or mail, okay, to basically section things off. All right, very good. All right, let's try the next one here. All of you doing absolutely fantastic so far. Let's look at the next one here. Hours slept in a week. Qualitative or quantitative? Hours slept in a week. Qualitative or quantitative? Go ahead and type that out in chat there. Okay, so everybody's saying quantitative there. All right. Oh, what happened to? I turn that off or did it turn it? Oh no, still on. That's weird. Oh right, I remember. Quantitative. That is correct. Okay, very good. All right. So the answer is quantitative. All right. Again, it is a numerical value about how many hours you sleep in a given week, no matter how many hours that may be. That's perfectly fine. All right. Last one here. The number of mats or materials required to craft something in Final Fantasy XIV. All right, so the number of mats required to craft something in Final Fantasy XIV. Would that be qualitative or quantitative? All right. People saying quantitative. Oh, look at that. Coming fast and furious indeed. All right. And everybody is correct here. The answer is definitely quantitative at the end of the day. All right. So, again, not too hard to distinguish between qualitative and quantitative. Good job, everybody. Very nicely done. But again, number of materials, again, a numerical value. And then you could craft whatever you need to craft in Final Fantasy XIV. I need to get my Weaver up to level 80. I'm level 79. I just did that today. All right. Good beans. All right. Any questions about qualitative or quantitative variables before we move forward? Any questions about that? Again, if you have questions, please type that out. Otherwise, if you don't have any questions, type no in the chat. All right. No questions? Okay. Let's go ahead and move forward then. That's perfectly fine. Okay, let's take a look at the next type of variable here, or variables, I should say. All right, so question 6. What are discrete and continuous variables? All right, so what's a discrete variable? So a discrete variable here is a variable that can take on a finite or countable number of values. So again, basically what discrete is saying is that, okay, you have a set amount of values that you can have. So for example, you could have values that it could take on a value of say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to whatever. But there is a set value here. It has a start, it has a finish. All right, you have a set value that it can be. It could be somewhere between two values. Okay, and then that's it. All right, so that would be a countable number of values, and it'd be set like so. The other type of variable here in this case would be the opposite of discrete, which would be a continuous variable. Now, a continuous variable would be a variable that takes an uncountable or infinite amount of values. Okay, so whatever that variable is, you can literally put any number in there that you could possibly want. It could take in on any value that you want. And that would be representative of a continuous variable. Okay, so let's take a good look here at some examples. And I want you to go ahead and so is this what discrete mathematics is about? To a degree. There's a little bit more to discrete math than, of course, just discrete variables. Although this is more along the lines of statistics more than it is discrete math. In discrete math, you're actually doing a little bit more proofs and stuff. All right, so you could kind of relate it to this definition, but it's not in its entirety, I would say, to be fair. There's a lot more to it than just that. That I can guarantee you. Proofs are definitely a thing in discrete math. I'll just point that out there, morning measure. All All right, so let's take a good look here. Okay, we have to determine whether or not it is a discrete variable or a continuous variable. So let's take a look at the first one here. Final combined points in a basketball game. Would that be a discrete variable? Would that be a continuous variable? Let's see some of the answers here. All right. Get a few more answers in here. Go ahead and answer that. All right. That looks pretty decent. I like it. I like it. All right. So the answer here for this is discrete. That is correct. Okay. Again, a couple things here is that a basketball game starts at 0-0, and eventually, after you can have as many overtimes as you want. Eventually, the game has to end, which with one team winning and one team losing. If you add up the amount of points each team gets, again, it will be a finite amount at the end of the day because the game will have to end at some point. All right. So again, because there's a start, there's an end, it can literally take on a finite amount of values, and then that's all you get at the end of the day, regardless of how long that game is going to be. It'll start, and it will finish. Okay. That's the first one here. Let's take a look at the second one here. A high temperature on a randomly selected day in Chicago. What about that? A high temperature on a randomly selected day in Chicago. Discrete or continuous? Okay. Let's get a few more answers in here. See many people put in discrete here. All right, so if that's focus's reasoning for picking discrete. All right, so let me go ahead and put down the answer here. A lot of you have put this down here. All right, so I have one continuous and everybody else discrete. So what is the final result here? Well, the high temperature on a randomly selected day in Chicago is going to be continuous, actually. So Brisa was right. The answer was indeed continuous. That is correct. Yes. Now let's talk about why it's continuous and not discrete like many of you thought it was. Read this a little bit carefully. It says a high temperature on a randomly selected day in Chicago. Note that I actually didn't say, note one thing here. Hey, that's okay. I don't mind if a lot of people are wrong. That is not a problem. That's why we go over these examples, is to, hopefully help change your perspective a little bit. That's the entire thing. I didn't necessarily say that what selected day we had. It's randomly selected. It could be literally on any day of the year, at any time. Okay? So it's a randomly selected day. Remember, there's no range of values because essentially it can be any day of the year. On top of that, it can literally be any temperature because we could have values that could be, say, minus 100 degrees or 120 degrees. It could literally be any value anywhere. There's no beginning, there's no end. It could literally take on any value that you want, and that would have to be continuous as part of the definition. So that's why, as a high temperature on a randomly selected day in Chicago, all right, the day may have a set temperature, but because it's randomly selected, You literally have any value that you want here for your temperature. And you could be as precise as you want for that high temperature for the day. So you don't have to necessarily say, oh, it's like, 78 degrees Fahrenheit. It could be 77.93572. You could take on any value there, and there you're going to get even more infinite values if you're even more precise about that temperature. So yes, it seems a little strange at first, but in reality, actually it's continuous and not discrete. Yeah, but there's always possibilities. You may get ranges of temperatures that could be impossible. We don't know what the condition of the Earth would be on that randomly selected day. I mean, let's say it was in the future, right? And the Earth was like devastated and it became like, the atmosphere of Mars. Well, then, of course, the temperatures are going to be much more extreme, you know? It could be like the planet Neptune and be like super cold all the time, with blazing winds of like 2,000 miles an hour or whatever. I mean, I don't know. It could be like that planet that continually rains glass sideways, with winds at like hundreds of miles per hour. It could be the coldest recording temperature. Absolutely. So literally because of the randomly selected day, it could be whatever it wants to be. No. And trust me, I think everybody knows we've had some really cold days here before. You remember a few years back we had that wind chill day. Wind chill day of like -40. So let's say we're given the condition that the temperature on the randomly selected day was something from the last 5 years. We're only allowed to use one method. Would it be discrete? So in that regard, the answer would be yes, because you've set certain conditions on what the values could be, and you have a range of especially true because you have a range of days that you can only look over. So underneath those conditions, they're neurotic. Yes, it would be discrete, but only because of the conditions you put upon it. I didn't really set out any conditions in this case, so it's continuous by nature. So that's the perspective you have to look over, is how you actually define it beforehand. So very good point there and very good question. Focus says to hydrate. Okay, that's fair. Let's hydrate. Let's bring out the tub of water. Thank you for the hydrate. Appreciate you. All right. All right. Okay. Next, let's go to the last example we see here. The volume of water that leaks out of a bathroom faucet. The volume of water that leaks out of a bathroom faucet. Would that be discrete or continuous? Okay. I like the way you think there, Focus. All right. And I would agree with that. The answer here is definitely, for that reasoning, would be continuous. Don't know when the leak would stop. We don't know, when we would actually stop the leak. Okay. Again, it could be leaking out for a long stretch of time. Yeah, continuous is absolutely correct, Valeria. So it's just again, and again, you can measure the volume of water out to X amount of decimal places. It doesn't matter. Okay, again, sometimes it's the way it's written to make a determination between whether it's discrete or whether it's continuous. Okay, so again, you just have to be careful and understand the perspective from how the example is written out to determine which one it would be at the end of the day. All right, are there any questions about discrete and continuous variables before we move forward? There are only a finite number of water molecules, I guess, but we're talking about volume, and you could go out to as many decimal places as you want. Plus, it leaks continuously, so it would have to be an infinite amount. Since we never stated we actually stopped the leak. Perspective matters on this one. We're talking volume, not number of molecules. And you'd have to constantly add molecules. But I digress. Because it continues to leak, of course. Alrighty. Let's take a good look here at number 7. Alright. Number 7 says, what are ordinal and nominal variables? Alright. Let's take a good look here at ordinal and nominal variables. Alright. Let's define both of these. These are the last two type of variables we're going to talk about here. Alright, so what's a nominal variable? A nominal variable here is a variable that does not have the possibility of the values being arranged in a particular ranked or specified order. Okay, so we don't really have the possibility to rank them in a particular or specified order. That would be a representative of a nominal variable. Let's take a look at the second type, which is an ordinal variable. Now, the easiest way to remind yourself it's an ordinal variable is the first three letters ORD, which represents order. So the variable does allow for the possibility of being ordered, okay, so being again arranged. It does allow for it to be arranged in a particular ranked or specified order. So let's go ahead and take a good look here at some examples, and we'll see whether or not it will be a nominal variable or an ordinal variable. Okay, let's look at the first one here. IMDb movie ratings. Do you believe that IMDb movie ratings would be an ordinal or nominal variable? That be an ordinal or nominal variable? IMDb movie ratings. Go ahead and type that out in the chat. You know what you think. All right, so we put ordinal there. All right, very good, very good. Okay, very good, very good. So the answer to this is pretty clear. Again, it's going to be ordinal. You can put this in order if you wanted to. Again, from say 0 stars to 5 stars on IMDb. So like if you've seen a really terrible movie, you'd rate it like 0 stars or very low. And if you've seen a really great movie, maybe you rate it a 5 stars or something pretty high. All right. So that would be regarding IMDb movie ratings. So maybe you saw a really terrible movie. And I mentioned this in my first couple classes here, but one of the worst movies I ever saw was Fantastic Four. That was a soul-crushing moment for me, as in I lost my soul watching that movie and my money out of my wallet too. Terrible, terrible movie. That was a pretty bad movie. So I gotta ask you guys, like I asked my first couple classes, of course. Yeah, Green Lantern. Ooh, Green Lantern. Oof, man. Yeah, that's a pretty bad movie. So I gotta ask everybody here. I gotta ask everybody here in the chat. All right, what was the worst movie you ever saw? What's the worst movie you ever saw? Or a pretty bad movie in your opinion? Worst movie you ever saw, or a pretty bad movie you ever saw, or a pretty bad movie? You guys feel me and let me know. Green Lantern was pretty bad. Fantastic Four was pretty bad. I don't know. Motel Hell, wow. Yeah, Motel Hell is pretty awful. I remember watching that movie. Yeah. Wow. It's been a while since I've seen that one. Yep. that's that's one of them. Coming to America. You know, I never seen Coming to America Part 2. That was the new remake, right? That was the new remake. Delgo. Delgo. I don't think I've heard of that movie. Delgo. Delgo. I gotta look that one up real quick. Delgo. Delgo 2008. That's probably why. Delgo. No, there's a let me go and show this off here. This is Delgo right here. Okay. Delgo, an adventurous but naive teenager, must rally his group of friends to protect their world from conflict between the Lochni and the Norrin people. Does that just sound just as bad as I think it was? This looks like terrible CGI for 2008. Like 2008 CGI was much better looking than this. I ain't gonna lie. Like, the reason why I've never heard of this movie, number one, is it's 2008, and I wasn't even in the country in 2008. Yeah, that was just terrible. That was bad. That was bad. Sharknado. Ah, Sharknado. Ah, come on now, Sharknado. I mean, Sharknado is supposed to be bad. So I mean, there's movies that are terrible. Sharknado is a terrible movie. That's just true. But it's like intended to be terrible. Like it's supposed to be one of those movies so bad it's actually decent or good. Justice League, yeah, Justice League, certainly. The new Fast and the Furious, I think that's usually happens with most of the movies that have gone 9 movies too long. The Watch, Jack and Jill with Adam Sandler. Ooh, that does sound familiar. I don't think I've watched that one. Is that the one where he just goes on on this bunch of dates, or or is that the one where he plays both characters or something like that? I don't know. I don't remember. Something like that. The new Mortal Kombat. Yeah, I'm telling you, new remakes of movies are pretty bad. All right, I'm gonna allow this one, Chris. Yeah, yeah, Chris. Poor Chris. Poor Chris. I I suddenly feel terrible now. Oh goodness. Alvin and the Chipmunks is worse. Ooh, okay. Oh boy. Oh boy, sausage party. Oh boy. Oh, the innuendo. You might as well call that the innuendo movie. It's like an hour and a half of innuendo. I will say this though. I don't know if anybody. I've never watched this movie, but I don't know if anybody here watched the Emoji Movie or not. But everybody who I've talked to that has watched the Emoji Movie absolutely hated it. Like, it was just goodness god awful. Like, just absolutely brutal. Chris saw it with their parents. Oh gosh. Oh, you did with your younger sister, Tarp 5, yeah. I watched the trailer for the movie when I was watching another movie at the theater a long time ago when it was about to come out, and I was so bored for the trailer. I was like, this movie is just hot garbage. It was bad. really bad. 2013 Hansel and Gretel. I obviously never watched that movie, but that sounds like a horror movie that's probably just really, really bad. Like a Hansel and Gretel like retelling of like, oh my God, they're gonna cook you in the oven, and then it's like this shtick of horror that's worse than future Friday the 13th movies. So at least Friday the 13th's got something decent in it. What it sounds like. Oh my gosh. We've all seen our share of pretty terrible movies, let's not lie to ourselves. It's always good to find out what people think about certain bad movies. Definitely true. All right. I gotta move on. Let me try and finish this. Yeah, I should be able to finish this. No problem. All right. Let's look at the next example here, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Let's look at nation of origin. Nation of origin would be nominal, or would it be ordinal? Would it be nominal, or would it be ordinal? All right, so we have some ordinal, we have some nominal. Okay. So some ordinal, some nominal. All right, so the nation of origin here as an overall variable, but Ulo makes a very good point here as well, is it's actually more of a nominal variable. But to Ulo's point, which is correct, if you need to rank the nations in alphabetical order, okay, if you feel that would be necessary as part of your database, then you would put it in alphabetical order. You would make it an ordinal. It would make it an ordinal variable, but only in that particular case. Otherwise, most of the time where your ancestry is from, that mostly is a nominal variable. All right, so that is what I have to say about nation of origin, is that you can again rank it in alphabetical order, but again, if it doesn't have anything to do with that, then it is going to be nominal. All right, what about eye color? What about eye color? Okay, saying nominal. All right. All right. And so the answer here is nominal, again, for the same reason as you would have nation of origin. If you have a reason to put it in alphabetical order or things like that, then you could go ahead and put it as a nominal variable. All right. But if you order it, maybe like Ulo says, you could put it in alphabetical order. You could put it in brightness if you really wanted to. But again, most of the time it will be reflected as a nominal variable. Most of the time, there's really not too much of a need unless it's absolutely necessary, or again, you're going to arrange it in that specific way. All right. Okay. All right, so any questions over nominal or ordinal? All right. Okay. So, question number 8 is a question that I had in there from before. This talks about interval and ratio variables. I'm going to go ahead and skip this question here. Any questions? Sometimes there'll be certain questions that we skip. Any questions that I skip, will not be reflected on tests or the homework or anything of the sort, or on the final exam as well. Again, if you find questions that I skipped, we talk about material. If it talks about material we never discussed, please bring that to my attention if I missed one in along the way on the homework or something like that. I'll be more than happy to eliminate that question as part of the homework. I already had to do that once today, so I probably just missed a question here or there when I'm putting together these guys. So if I accidentally missed one, just bring it to my attention, because you say, oh, we didn't talk about it. Okay, I'll be happy to eliminate that question, but not every question, mind you. Not every question. Um, can we rank eye color based on the wavelength of the color? I mean, sure. You need to. Sure, you could do that. I would have like the wavelength on. I would have the wavelength on like the as a separate column, and then the eye color would be like a separate column, and then you can rank it with wavelength being your medium in between. That way you'd have it in a proper order as a certainty. So, like I said, there are certain exceptions to the rule. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, it has to be this and it has to be that. No, there's certain exceptions. There's certain exceptions for sure, if you are intending to do it that way. So, right. If it's relevant for what you're trying to do, then certainly you could put anything in an order if you so choose, right? But again, these two examples here says most of the time, nation of origin or eye color is not going to be really all that necessary for us to necessarily put in order, unless you want to make it so that way. All right. So at the end of the day, it's up to you. But again, most cases will be nominal as opposed to being ordinal. That's why I'm not ruling out the possibility in that regard, because it is a valid point. Okay, let's go ahead and take a good look here at number 9. All right, so let's look at number 9. Number 9 says, what is a randomized experiment and observational study? Okay, well, let's first define each of these here. Let's talk about an observational study. So an observational study here is a study in which the researcher does not interfere with the participants. So, like, let's say, for example, let's give a good example here. Let's say I'm trying to do a study that's linking, say, drinking coffee and heart disease risk. Okay, so I'm trying to say, if you drink more coffee, is there a higher chance of heart disease? Okay, and let's say if I'm doing a observational study, I may ask you to be a participant in my study, and I say, hey, do you want to participate in my study? You say, sure, I'll participate. I may ask you a series of questions: what's your height, what's your weight, and I would say, well, how many cups of coffee do you drink, and what kind of health conditions that you have? And so I'd jot all that information down, keep it in my archives, my records. And I say, okay, you can go on your way. Thank you very much for asking your questions. And maybe I touch base with you back in, say, 6 months or a year, and you give me an update based on your health condition and how many cups of coffee you drink and all that jazz. And then based on that, and of course many other people you would interview, and of course, noting trending with their trending things that they may have, say, oh, is there a link between, drinking coffee and heart disease risk? And you could see, is there or isn't there, based on all the data that you've collected. But nowhere in between have you actually interfered with what people are doing on a day-to-day basis. They're doing whatever they want to do. You just are observing them, with check-ins or from afar, whatever the case may be, and seeing if there is or is not. Okay, so that is an observational study. All right, a randomized experiment, on the other hand, is where the researcher directly interferes with the participants. Okay, so a classic example here of like a randomized experiment would be clinical trials. Okay, so if you're trying to make a new drug, or again, something more relevant to what we're talking about today, would be like, again, the vaccine. Okay, so you're making the vaccine to fight COVID. Okay, then of course you just can't make it up out of nowhere. You need to conduct clinical trials in order to determine the effectiveness, or again, even if the the formula will work against something like COVID-19. All right, so again, you're going to create an experiment where part of the people will become your control group and part of the people will become your patient group, or the people who receive the vaccine. All right, and of course, you're going to compare and contrast the results after you go ahead and test it out. All right, so you check out the the side effects and all that jazz after you go ahead and try, or maybe you put a couple people in the same group, like they have particular diseases, and say, well, what's the effect of the vaccine if you have such and such disease? Maybe like common one would be a lot of people like putting this in a group of like people who are diabetic, because you can't take certain medications if you're diabetic. Same thing if you've had a heart disease. You can't take certain medications if you had a heart disease. So how would the vaccine affect people who have heart disease or diabetic? You want to see what those side effects would be. You want to see exactly how that would work out, so you could take precautions in the future. Okay, so that'd be part of randomized experiments. Now, of course, with randomized experiments or observational studies, there are There are particular studies that do go on between these two, especially with experiments. Let's talk about each one here. I'm gonna talk about these very briefly, but we're not gonna go over these in super great detail. But I'll just talk to them, talk about them, in a short way. So let's take a look at the first one here. What type of studies are common that you can find, whether it be observational or randomized experiments? The first type of study that's pretty common is a confounding study. Again, a simple definition of a confounding study would be this occurs if the two effects or more of explanatory variables are not separated, meaning to say there could be a third variable that could say, let's say there's a third variable somewhere in between that basically links, that could link coffee drinking and heart disease risk. Okay, maybe it's not the coffee itself, maybe it's the caffeine or the amount of caffeine. Okay, that could be the third variable instead. Coffee would be like a medium, but the caffeine is really the thing that links those two together. Okay, as an example. All right, so confounding would be one of those types of studies trying to see if that third variable does affect the other two. Retrospective, it's exactly what it sounds like. Again, you're comparing and contrasting from years past, so something from 25 years ago to today. That would be a retrospective study. A single blind study, that'd be more along the lines of, say, the clinical trials. A single blind study would be like, let's say the researchers know who got the drug and who didn't. So who got the placebo and is part of the control group, and who actually got the drug. That would be a single blind study. And a double-blind study means that neither the patients nor the researchers know who got what at the end of the day. So nobody knows who got what. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, why would you have a study where nobody knows who got what? The reason why is because if you have a double-blind study here specifically, is that it reduces the amount of bias in the results that you'll notice at the end of the study. So, meaning to say, if you know who got what, then you're going to be actually, by nature, you're going to have a little bit more bias in your, when you're looking at certain patients, because then you'll know, oh, he didn't get the drug, so he should act this way. He got the drug, so he should act this way. So you have kind of a little bit of implicit bias because you know who got what at the end of the day. Whereas a double-blind study, you have to be very scrutinous for every single patient, depending on it, and you will not know if they actually got the placebo or not. And then over time, you'll be able to make those determinations, able to write down your results with less bias and less interference in the way. So you'll actually get a little bit more clear-cut results and clear-cut observations with the double-blind study. This is why it's pretty popular. Okay. Now let's talk about a few other things here. All right, let's talk about number 11. All right, so number 11 is something that's pretty relevant for what we've done here last year, and that talks about a census. So what is a census? Now, again, last year you probably had somebody come up to your door, or again got something in the mail. It is the U.S. Census. This talks about various things in the household. Of course, how many people are in the household? What's the ethnicities of the people? What are the ages of those people? They ask you a variety of questions. And it does have a lot of implications. The census certainly does. It gives you a good big picture of people in general. You know, the race makeup, could be ethnic makeup. It could be again, salaries. You know, what's the salary per person or something to that degree. This also determines politics. Again, how many people live in a certain area determines how many representatives you get, say in a state or in an area. So again, those things certainly have implications. And essentially, if you look at it from a base definition point of view, a census is a list of all individuals in a population with certain characteristics of each individual. So a very generic definition here, but again, a very appropriate one. Just like what probably if you got a chance to look at the census last year, that's exactly what they're asking you. The only problem with the census, of course, is that you're asking all individuals in a population. So when you have a population of 350 million plus in the United States, that's a lot of time and that's a lot of money. So it's very difficult to do a census. Okay, just like even at ECC, it's very difficult to ask 10, 15,000 students. Okay, if there are that many at it's very difficult. It takes a long time and it's pretty expensive to do. So again, but if you want to find out what the makeup is, then that's something that you can certainly do. And it's again very good to get a good breakdown of a big picture perspective. Okay. All right, so up till here, number 11, are there any questions so far? We're going to do this last question here, but are there any questions so far up to number 11 here, up to census? Any questions? Again, if you have questions, please ask, or again, just type no in the chat. And yep. All right, well, I'll go ahead and move forward then, if nobody has any questions. Okay, now, let's take a good look here at number 12. Now, number 12 is going to be the last question that we're going to be discussing here today. Now, number 12 is, we'll probably be answering this next time as well, but I want to kind of get it in your mind right now. And this is going to be setting us up for the latter half of Chapter 1, and something that we're going to see quite a bit of here in many, many different concepts here throughout the course of this semester. And that talks about the concept of a simple random sample. So we did talk about at the very beginning here today, we did talk about sampling. That's how we're going to be conducting these statistical studies. We're going to take a subset of people, ask them our survey question, do you like brand A or brand B, or whatever questions that we're going to seriously ask them, and hopefully get those results. But the most ideal way to get a sample is going to be what we call a simple random sample. Let's look at the definition here. What is a simple random sample? Your question number 12. This is a sample in which every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected and completely selected randomly. So for example here, let's say we're on campus, okay? Basically, here's how it works. If I'm going to truly select a simple random sample, that means that, let's say you're sitting in front of me, you have an equal chance of being selected as much as the next person who is clear across campus. So if you have, say, let's say you had a, just as an example, let's say you had a 1 out of 1,000 chance being selected as part of my survey. Well, then the person clear across campus also has a 1 out of 1,000 chance of being selected as part of my survey. Okay, so again, each person has an equal chance of being selected, and why I choose you to be part of my sample for my survey, well, there's no rhyme, there's no reason. I'm just randomly selecting you at will. Okay, so that is what a simple random sample is, and this is the most ideal situation that we want to be in, is to pick people at random, with no bias, no nothing. We're just going to pick people at random, and we're just going to go ahead and find out whatever it is we want to find out, whatever questions we're going to be asked, again, as random as possible. Now, if you can see here based on this definition, that's not always going to be necessarily very easy, okay? Sometimes that may not be, needless to say, very convenient. So what we're going to be looking at here next time are different ways about how we can choose samples how we can choose samples if we can't necessarily meet the ideals of a simple random sample. In some cases we can, and maybe some cases we can't. And there's different ways to certainly choose a sample here in other situations. So we'll certainly look at that for next time here and see different ways to select samples in order to get results for our statistical analysis. All right. But like I said, the ideal here is going to be, say, something like number 12. All right. So that's the main part here. The latter half of chapter 1 is going to reflect around sampling and bias and things like that. So we'll discuss that for next week. All right. Very good. And if you want to know where a lot of this data goes into, by the way, let me go ahead and point something out here. Put this up here. Where does a lot of this data go into? Or where it kind of helps? Again, if we want a good big picture perspective about where some of this data could be used, again, you could look at something like this website, which is the usdebtclock.org. This gives you a good big picture, ballpark estimations. I won't say exact estimations, but ballpark estimations on the state of the country as it stands. Okay, so they talk about the current population, how many people are in the workforce generally, how many people are full-time workers. Okay, and like I said, it's a ballpark estimation. It isn't; these aren't exact numbers by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, obviously people don't report, or again, this is an approximation of some variety. So, um, how many union workers, the median income, okay, our national debt, which is close to $28.7 trillion. Nice. Okay. And so, as you can see here, that's generally how things are working in terms of how you could take things like a census, you can update these numbers, you can see what the breakdown would be. And you hear about these numbers all the time, right? How many people are in the workforce? What's our unemployment numbers? How much are people making? How many people, here you go, how many people are living in poverty? How many people are without insurance? How many people receive food stamps? Okay, things like that. All those things fairly important. All right. All right. Okay. Any questions? Any questions at all about these first 3 sections? Any questions at all about these first 3 sections? I'll click off of this. Any questions about these first 3 sections? Again, I do apologize if I went too fast. If I did go too fast, just let me know. I can scroll back up to other questions if you've missed any. So just let me know. Alrighty. Good stuff. Okay. When is the homework test due? Whenever we finish up chapter 3, then I'll announce when the due date for that is going to be. We're not there yet, though. So, long time. Yeah, you have quite a while before that happens. All right, Chris? I'll certainly make an announcement. I'll give you a lot of warning ahead of time, okay? Well, thanks to you too. Hanks, yes. It's like nominal, no. All right. All right. So I want to thank everybody here for coming on out to the stream today. Once again, all of you are absolutely fantastic people. Thank you so very much. I love all of you. All of you are so kind to come out to a stream today. we are going to be continuing moving forward here with 141516. If you're trying to do it at the same pace as I'm doing these lessons, please do sections 1-1 to 1-3. That's sections 1-1 to 1-3 if you're trying to keep pace up with the homework from the sections that we do together here today. Sections 1-1 to 1-3 should take you no time at all to do. Should be fairly straightforward and fairly short. All right. In the meantime, though, again, thank you so very much once again. You all are absolutely fantastic. You guys are lovely people. I love you all. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, but most importantly, stay sane. All right? Have yourself a very wonderful weekend, everybody. We will come back here on Tuesday, and we will continue to be moving forward. Once we reach Chapter 2, everybody, we're going to be starting the actual numerical stuff. So numbers will be happening. It'll just be starting in Chapter 2. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have yourself a wonderful night and weekend, and we will see you all later. All right. Take care, everybody. See ya, everybody. All right. All right. Thank you for the follow. Thank you for the follow, Chris. I really appreciate it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Bye. Bye, everybody.